There's a mourning dove in your yard that has already made a decision about your property. I'm not guessing. These birds move through a yard, your yard, and they run a checklist. Flat surface, overhead cover, reasonably close to food. When they find a spot that checks all three boxes, the decision is made. You did not get a vote. You didn't get a vote on the windshield wiper, or the gas tank lid, or the potted tomato plant at the garden center, or the Easter wreath on the front door. And if your dove is anything like the birds I've been hearing about in the comments, you definitely didn't get a vote on number 20. I've been paying attention to the backyard here in Northern Virginia for about 5 years now, and I'll admit, I didn't take mourning doves seriously for the first 2 of those years. They seemed like background birds, round, gray, slow. They sat at the ground feeder with the house sparrows and the dark-eyed juncos and ate what fell. I didn't think much about where they went after. Then I started getting nesting stories, and they kept coming. And a picture started to form that completely changed the way I look at these birds. If this is your first time here, subscribe before we get going. We do this kind of thing every week, and mourning doves are just the beginning. Stay until number 20. I want to be upfront that number 20, dove through an open back door on the living room carpet, 1 egg, came with 591 likes in the comments. I've thought about it many times since. It belongs at the end of this list, and you'll understand why when we get there. 20 places mourning doves decided to raise a family, starting with the one that almost always fails. Number 1, the gutter. I start here because it's the most common story I get, and also because it almost never ends well. The gutter is the mourning dove's most optimistic mistake. It's flat. It has a slight wall on one side. The roofline sits directly above it. From a dove's perspective, that is essentially a cliff ledge in a canyon wall. All 3 boxes checked. From physics, water flows through it. Mourning dove nests are sometimes described by ornithologists as the most minimal construction effort of any bird commonly seen in North American yards. We're talking a loose platform of maybe 20 to 30 sticks, sometimes fewer. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology notes the structure is occasionally so open that eggs can be seen from below. That is the whole thing. It's a surface, not a shelter. Place that surface on a slope that drains, and the rest is mathematics. Number 2, the windshield wiper. Someone was backing their car out of the driveway. The car moved. The bird did not. It turned and looked at them through the windshield. The driver stopped. This went on for about 3 weeks. Here's the thing about a windshield wiper that makes sense to a dove. It's a horizontal arm elevated off a warm hood with a slight curve that keeps a platform from sliding sideways. The windshield itself provides a vertical barrier on one side. It is not an unreasonable ledge. It is also your car. Several people mentioned the dove eventually going along for short distances before flying back to the wiper. I can't verify that. I believe it completely. Number 3, the windowsill. This one comes with something the others usually don't, a live-in audience. One family described watching the entire cycle from inside the house, through the glass, close enough to see detail without disturbing anything. From the first loose arrangement of sticks, to the eggs, to the morning the fledglings finally left. The fledgling window for mourning doves, the time between hatching and when the young birds leave the nest, is roughly 11 to 15 days from what I can find. Some sources say as few as 11, some as many as 17. It seems to vary with conditions and how far south you are. 11 to 15 days of watching from your own living room, like a nature documentary attached to your window. Number 4, the top of a porch column, a decorative column capital. That flat, sometimes slightly raised platform at the very top, registers as nothing to a person walking past and is prime real estate to a dove running a site assessment. It's elevated, it's flat. The porch roof provides overhead cover within a foot or two, and you go in and out 6 feet away every single day. Mourning doves in residential areas have what researchers describe as substantially reduced flight initiation distance around humans, meaning they've learned over time that the person walking past is not coming for them. The porch column works precisely because you've made yourself boring. That is, from the dove's perspective, a recommendation. Number 5. The eave overhang. This is the one I'll allow. An eave is genuinely sheltered, genuinely flat, genuinely elevated with a roof directly above. It's the most architecturally correct choice on this entire list. A dove nesting under your eave is doing what a cliff nesting bird would do. Finding a sheltered ledge above open ground. You happen to have built the cliff yourself out of vinyl siding and dimensional lumber. But the principle is the same, and the dove, in this case, is not wrong. Here's what most people don't know, and it's the thing that makes every item on this list make a different kind of sense. Mourning doves are not building the way a robin builds, no mud bowl, no woven grass cup, and not the way a house finch stuffs a hanging basket or a Carolina wren fills a planter with moss and bark. What a mourning dove constructs, and I use that word loosely, is a flat, loose platform of twigs. The Cornell lab describes the nest as sometimes so minimal that eggs are visible from below. That is the whole structure. So when your dove is searching for a nesting site, it is not looking for a cavity. It is not looking for a cup. It is not looking for a branch fork or a hidden shelter. It is looking for a flat surface with overhead cover, close to food. That's the complete checklist. Your windshield wiper is a ledge. Your grill lid is a ledge. Your gas tank, your eave, your living room floor, all of these are, in principle, a ledge. Once you understand that, 19 of the 20 places on this list start to make a different kind of sense. Number 6. A shelf in the garage inside a coil of chicken wire at eye level. The person opened the garage door and found a mourning dove sitting in a roll of wire mesh on the lowest shelf, eggs clearly visible underneath, looking at them with what was apparently complete composure. The dove did not flush. The person started closing the garage door more gently going forward. For about 3 weeks. They mentioned this in passing, as if adjusting your daily habits around a bird on your garage shelf was the obvious and correct response. If you're the kind of person who watches these videos, it probably is. Number 7. The lid of the outdoor grill. Multiple people. Consistently the same story. They flip the lid to start preheating. There's a nest with 2 eggs in it. They close the lid and go inside and figure out something else for dinner. I want to note what makes that choice rational. The lid of a covered grill is dark when closed, flat, enclosed on 3 sides, and depending on afternoon sun exposure, mildly warm. It ticks the same boxes as an eave. The dove did not make an error. You left the grill cover closed for a week in April without checking underneath. I say this without judgment. I have also not checked under my grill cover this spring. Number 8. The external propane tank lid. Someone had a mourning dove build a nest on the lid of their outdoor propane tank. The bird laid eggs. They waited. The eggs hatched. They waited for the chicks to fledge. Then they called the gas company. The following spring, the pair came back. Same tank, same lid. They are now in their 4th consecutive season. The gas technician who comes for the annual check is aware. He removes the lid carefully, does the inspection, replaces it. Everyone is accommodated. This is called site fidelity, a documented tendency in mourning doves to return to successful nesting locations, sometimes across multiple seasons. The research on this suggests it isn't habit in the way we usually mean that word. It's assessment. This site worked. The threat profile hasn't changed. We're coming back. I don't know at what point the gas company's awareness of the dove situation became standard procedure. I like that it did. Number 9. An Easter wreath, front door, glass panel directly adjacent. The glass is the detail that sets this one apart. There was a narrow sidelight window next to the front door, and the wreath was hung about 8 inches from it, which meant the family could watch the entire nesting cycle from inside the house without approaching the nest at all. They reported watching for about 2 weeks of incubation, roughly 14 days from what I can find, though I've seen it cited anywhere from 13 to 15 depending on the source, and then watching the chicks for about 12 more days before the fledglings left. The babies were gone before the wreath came down. Someone asked in the comments whether they left the wreath up longer than usual. They didn't answer that. I think that non-answer is its own kind of answer. Number 10. A potted tomato plant at a commercial garden nursery, not a private yard, a store. A mourning dove chose a display tomato in the open sales area of a garden center during the peak of spring planting season. The store put up a hand-lettered sign. Please do not disturb. Bird nesting here. Staff watered the plant carefully. The tomato plants around it sold out. Customers came to see the bird. The nursery owner said it was the best thing that happened to them that spring. They hadn't planned it. They hadn't asked for it. The dove decided. This is a pattern I keep seeing in these stories. The dove chooses a spot. The humans around that spot make accommodations they didn't expect to make. And most of them, when they write about it, sound like they'd do it again. I want to pause here before we go further, because I'm only telling you part of the story. Not everyone in these comments is delighted. Some people are being woken up at 4 a.m. by mourning dove calls, a low, resonant coo that carries through a closed window with real precision. That same call that sounds peaceful at 9 a.m. sounds like something very different at 4. Someone told me they've removed nests from the same spot 10 times over 3 years, and within a week the bird is back. Someone else said the nest on a piece of equipment they needed cost them 2 days of work and actual money. A Cooper's hawk that works the yards around my neighborhood, a bird that will take a dove mid-flight on a good day, has ended a mourning dove season early at least twice that I've seen. I'm not here to tell you the frustration isn't valid. I just want you to know what we're working with before we get to number 20. Number 11. The motor housing of a ceiling fan, covered back porch. A dove found its way into the small enclosure where the motor mounts to the ceiling on a covered porch fan. The person didn't notice in time. They turned the fan on. The nest survived. The dove survived. The fan blades did not. They replaced the blades. The following spring, the dove came back to the same housing. The person, by this point, understood the situation. They ran the fan on its lowest setting, continuously, for 3 weeks, to keep air moving and prevent a second nesting attempt. 4 destroyed blades, 3 weeks of continuous electricity, and what sounds like a relationship that permanently changed the nature of their back porch. I've thought about that person's determination. I respect it. Number 12. A saguaro cactus right next to the front door. For the Southwest folks, the dove built in the hollow of a saguaro arm at about shoulder height, directly on the family's main path to the entrance. They started using the side gate. They were roughly 2 weeks into the incubation, about 14 days from laying to hatching, though I've seen ornithologists put it between 13 and 15, when the neighbors started a construction project. Power tools, compressor, the full spring renovation situation. The birds left. The eggs didn't hatch. The person wrote briefly in the comments and didn't say what happened to the eggs afterward. I found that one hard to close. Number 13. The communal fire escape staircase of an apartment building. The record I've seen, 12 birds on a single fire escape landing across one season. Not at once, 12 over the course of spring and summer, including multiple nesting pairs and their offspring returning to a spot that had established itself as safe. Pay attention to this next part. In the United States, mourning doves are protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the MBTA. Active nests, meaning nests with eggs or living young, cannot legally be removed. That applies even when the nest is somewhere inconvenient. I want to be honest that I wasn't certain about this for a long time. I'm not a lawyer. And state-level rules can add additional layers to this. But if you have a nest on a safety exit or a location you actually need for access, that is a conversation worth having with your local wildlife office before you make any decisions on your own. It's not just a courtesy issue. Number 14. On the internal shelf above the firebox, inside a chimney, the detail that stays with me here is the sound. Mourning doves have a low, resonant call, that long, slow coo, that carries a considerable distance in open air. A mourning dove nesting in the upper structure of a chimney will send that call down the full length of the flue and into your living room. One person described hearing what sounded like someone standing at their front door, repeatedly. early in the morning. A low, insistent knock. It took them several days to trace it to the fireplace. That coo, carried by brick, amplified by a vertical stone column, arriving at 6 in the morning in your own house. I still cannot decide whether that's peaceful or unsettling. I think it depends entirely on whether you know what you're listening to. Number 15, the external ledge of a window air conditioning unit, 8th floor. This one earns a moment. The 8th floor is not close to the ground. It is not near where seed falls, not near the shrubs and ground-level cover mourning doves typically favor. Reaching that ledge required the bird to look up past 7 floors and decide, there. The same pair came back the following year. Same unit, same building. Site fidelity in mourning doves doesn't require the site to have been ideal. It requires it to have worked. Whatever that 8th floor ledge offered, whatever passed the checklist, it was enough. Once was enough to bring them back. Number 16, a broken gutter downspout under the roofline for 5 consecutive years. The downspout cracked a few inches below where it connected to the gutter, leaving a small open cradle of aluminum just under the eave. A dove found it the spring after it broke, nested there, raised chicks, came back the following year, 5 years. Mourning doves can raise multiple clutches across a season. The numbers I've seen cited range from 2 to 3 broods in northern parts of their range, and viewers writing from Florida and Texas have described seeing more than that. I want to be careful about stating a specific number because it seems to vary significantly with climate and season length, and the data I've found points in different directions. 3 broods per season is commonly cited. Some people in the Deep South report more. 5 years, 3 or so attempts per year, the same broken downspout. The repair never got made. I think I understand why not. Number 17. A pontoon boat on the water. A mourning dove built a nest on the flat railing of a pontoon boat docked at a private lake. The eggs hatched while the boat was still tied up. The chicks were still in the nest the first afternoon in May when the family wanted to go out for the first time that season. They took the boat out. The dove came with them, not metaphorically. The bird stayed on the nest while the boat moved. They went around the lake, about a mile, the person estimated. The dove watched the shoreline. When they came back and tied up at the dock, the bird was still there, wings folded, the chicks underneath. They did this 4 more times that season. The chicks fledged without incident. I think about this story more than most. Number 18. An aluminum ladder leaning against a second-floor balcony. The ladder had been leaning there since February. There was always something else to get to first. A dove found the flat step of the second rung from the top, the ladder's side rails providing a low wall on each side, and decided, here, 2 eggs. One night, 2 people came into the yard. They saw the ladder. One of them reached for a rung. The dove, nesting with eggs in the dark, flushed off the nest in a sudden burst of wings that neither of them was expecting. Both people dropped the ladder and ran. In the morning, the dove was back on the nest. Both eggs hatched. Both chicks fledged. The person named them Heckle and Jekyll. The ladder was still leaning against the balcony railing in October. There was no plan to move it. Number 19. A nest built entirely from black plastic cable ties on the roof of a communications building in Seattle, found by a maintenance technician on a routine equipment inspection. The nest platform was made from zip ties, the kind used to bundle wire harnesses on telecommunications equipment, not 1 or 2, enough of them to form a structure. 2 eggs inside. There was no twig in range, no grass, no bark. The dove looked at what was available and built what it knew how to build with what the environment offered. Flat surface, overhead cover from the equipment housing, construction material sourced from the surroundings. The maintenance crew made the decision to leave the eggs alone. I don't know how that story ended. I want to believe it ended well. Number 20. I've saved this one for last because it has to be last. Someone had their back door open on a warm spring morning. One of those mornings where the temperature is the same on both sides of the threshold and the door stops feeling like a boundary. At some point, it had been open longer than they registered. When they looked down, at the edge of the living room carpet, just inside, just over the threshold. There was a mourning dove sitting on a small pile of sticks, one egg underneath it. The dove looked at them. They looked at the dove. Neither moved. This got 591 likes in the comments, and I keep asking myself why. Not because it surprises me that people responded to it, but because I want to understand exactly what it is that lands so hard. I think it's this. 19 places on this list involve doves choosing spots near your life. On your property, in your yard, close to your routines, visible from your windows. This is the place where the dove walked through the door, into your interior, and did not distinguish between your living room and everything else it had already decided was acceptable. The dove was not confused. It was not lost. It was not making a mistake. It ran the same checklist it runs on your gutters and your grill lid and your gas tank cap. Flat surface, overhead cover, near food, safe. And the kitchen, the living room carpet edge, passed. There's something worth sitting with in that. Mourning doves weigh about 120 grams, roughly the weight of a small bar of soap. They spend their entire lives navigating a world that contains things trying to end them. Cooper's hawks, cats, windows, cold, drought. And when they find a place that is genuinely, consistently safe, they come back to it. They raise young in it. Eventually, apparently, they walk through the door. I think about the Tuesday couple, the pair of chickadees that have been coming to the feeders out back for what I believe is their 5th winter now. I'm at the kitchen window with coffee most mornings. I watch them for a while. And I think about what it means that something keeps choosing to be here. It isn't an emotional decision on their part. It's a survival decision. But those two things aren't always as far apart as I used to assume. I don't have great words for the dove on the carpet. I'm not going to tell you it means something specific. I'm not going to tell you it doesn't. What I can tell you is that the person left the egg there, did not move the bird, did not move the nest, and I understand completely why. And when I think about why, I end up thinking about what it feels like to have something look at your life, run its checklist, and decide, this place is safe. Most of us, I think, are glad to be found. Mourning doves started all of this the way they always do. They found your yard, they found your gutter and your grill and your gas tank and your open back door. They ran their checklist. They decided you weren't a threat. And then they brought sticks. If you have a nest right now and you're wondering about timing, from what I can find, you're looking at roughly 14 days from laying to hatching, give or take a day or two, and then another 11 to 15 before the young birds are ready to leave. That's your window. That's all it asks of you. What's the strangest place you found your doves trying to raise a family? Drop yours below. What you noticed, what you tried. I want to hear about it. I read everyone. I'll see you in the next one.